All right. Well, that game sucked. No, it didn't really. It was actually a very exciting game. Truly edge of your seat style stuff. Definitely a game that we will remember. Hopefully not because it was the beginning of the end for the Giants in 2014, but definitely kind of a rough game to watch. Very frustrating. We had our chances. We had plenty of chances. And again, still not seeing that big hit come through. At least not the one that that really can blow the game open. And we had more, just tons of opportunities to blow the game open, and it did not happen. Rough game to watch. Especially, you hate it when they come back dramatically, and then it's all for naught. I've seen that too many times with the Giants in the past. That's not to say that lately that hasn't been the case. Usually they come back and make something out of it, but it's a tough one to take. However, the gut punch that was our game two loss is softened by Yadier Molina's potential absence from at least a few games in the series. Well, probably at least a game or two in the series. Maybe the entire rest of the series, which would be great. I think. I mean, it wouldn't be great. I don't want to say that. I don't want. It's not that I want to say that I don't want to see Yadier Molina. It'd be nice to beat the Cardinals with Yadier Molina, and you never want to see a talented guy like him go down in a series because certainly no, you don't want anyone accusing you of having success just due to unforeseen circumstances and not by your own merits. But certainly our chances of winning the series are a lot better with him out, and yeah, I would be really afraid right now if, to be honest, I would be very afraid if he was still in there because this was a major momentum changer for the Cardinals. We had a chance to put him away in this game, and we kind of blew the game, and it was a stirring victory for them, and sort of an emotional victory, and it probably gives them a lot of confidence in this series. In fact, it probably would give them even more confidence if it weren't for the fact that there's a good chance they won't have Molina. So let's anyway to the points that I have written down here that I needed to get to. First of all, the Giants' power outage is becoming somewhat noticeable at this point. We did have that home run from Belt in the Nationals game. I do believe that's the only home run we hit as a team. I'm trying to think of it now, and I can't remember anyone else with a home run in the postseason other than, well, wait, Crawford. Crawford hit the other home run for us in the postseason, and he was on a bit of a hot streak when that happened. But we're not really looking for a home run from Crawford in that Pittsburgh game. That was a nice surprise. Belt, I think, by the end of that Nationals game, which is when he hit the home run, pretty much everybody was swinging for the fences, and it was just sort of a matter of who's going to take it out first. And so, while that was a nice home run and won that game for us and maybe even won the series for us, the guys we expect to be hitting home runs, Posey, Pence, to some extent Sandoval, we'd like to see another home run out of Belt. We'd like to see a home run out of Morse at some point, one of these guys has got to give us a home run. I mean, primarily I'm looking at Posey and Pence. Pence hasn't really hit a home run in a while, and I think he's kind of due. And Posey, really, I'm used to seeing him hit home runs in the postseason, and not one yet. So, Posey and Pence especially, you got to expect that they're due. Sandoval has been very inconsistent with power this year, so you almost can't really expect a home run out of him. That's not to say that he doesn't have it in him. And, he did hit 3 home runs in a one World Series game, but That was a long time ago, and you know, his power is very unpredictable, so you can never really predict when Panda's going to hit one out. But but yeah, you know, a lot of the question is going to be whether we'll get a home run out of Morse, and maybe the better question would be, are we going to get a home run out of Morse without him being in the starting lineup? Can we expect a pinch hit home run from Morse? What is the likelihood of that happening? You know, I don't know. It seems a lot to expect for Morse to, you know, get lucky in a pinch hit appearance and hit a home run. I mean, certainly it's not impossible, but our chances of getting some power out of Morse go up dramatically if he's in the starting lineup. So, something to think about. I'll talk more about that in a bit. But let's start with the lineups or the box score and see how they did. Blanco was 2 for 5 with an RBI, no walks. You know, 2 for 5. That's good. You know, it's good to see him finally have some success at the plate in the postseason. He's done absolutely nothing at this point. You know, they were giving him some credit for hitting a flare to shortstop in that situation that occurred there in the top of the ninth inning. And, you know, he had a good at-bat, I agree, but Flair, the shortstop, you know, wasn't exactly like, you know, they act like he hit it really hard. He didn't hit it that hard. He hit it pretty well, but, you know, I don't know. I'm never that impressed by it, and it wasn't like he killed the ball, and certainly would have liked another hit in that situation. Can't get on him too much, 2 for 5. If he could do that for us with an RBI, even, he came through earlier in the game with an RBI hit that was pretty important at the time. So if he can give us, you know, anything like that performance from here on out, I think we'll definitely take it. A little disappointed he didn't walk against Lance Lynn, who doesn't have the greatest control in general, but whatever, it is what it is. So yeah, still hoping that Blanco can be semi-effective as the leadoff hitter. Let's see, Panic 1 for 4. He was having a relatively mediocre game up until he took that walk that put him on for Posey and, you know, let that wild pitch get past. So I can't give him too much credit because he took a lot of close pitches in that at-bat, and, you know, you really would like to see another hit there, but you know, Panic did well enough. He's still a rookie. Can't get too hard on him. Posey, though, really was not there for this game, and this is one where you really wanted to see something out of Posey, and, you know, Posey's lack of hitting in this game. I mean, he did have, I guess, early in the game, he hit a ball that was caught by Grichuk that was, you know, smoked. Looked like a double, and Grichuk made a great play on the ball. So, you know, Posey almost contributed in this game, but, you know, Posey, I was kind of surprised that he ended up walking in the end. I would have liked to have seen Posey be a little more aggressive at the end against, let's see, who did he take the walk from? I think he was still Rosenthal at the time that he was up there. I mean, I guess you have to give Posey some credit. He saw that Rosenthal wasn't pitching that well, and certainly you don't feel that bad about having Sandoval up, especially after he doubled in his previous at-bat. And speaking of Sandoval, another poor performance with the bases loaded. I feel like that's something we've seen a lot of. The Sandoval doesn't really get the job done with the bases loaded. Now, there were 2 outs, so we needed a hit at that point. And I don't know. It seems like Sandoval is not necessarily a pressure-packed kind of hitter, which is one of the reasons why his RBI totals were kind of down for the year. Doesn't always get the job done when you really need that big hit. Always seems like a lot of his RBIs come when you don't expect them as much, or when you're not waiting for them as much. So, but, you know, and that's why I still like the idea of Pence in the cleanup spot. They didn't do it, and they haven't done it in either of the first 2 games, I guess because there have been 2 right-handed pitchers, but I don't see why we can't have Pence in the cleanup spot every game. I'm hoping that would be the case in the next game, but we'll wait and see. Belt, pretty good game, 1 for 3. He left only a guy on base. He took a walk. On the whole, he did pretty well. Crawford, 0 for 3. Scored a run, had a walk, You know, he was at least part of that rally in the top of the ninth to get the tying run across, and you know, I'd like to see him hit a little more than he's been hitting the last few games as he's gone into like a Crawford-like slump, but I sort of expected that to some extent. Ishikawa, pretty good, 1 for 2. Left the guy on base. Yeah, it was kind of a shame that we replaced him with Juan Perez as early as we did, but or at least I thought it would be a shame. In the end, it ended up being very good. So yeah, I guess I can just ignore that. But Ishikawa again has been, you know, pretty exemplary as a fill-in. But the other thing is that eventually he was pinch hit for, and that was Morse. And Morse had a solid broken bat single. I think he put a pretty good hurting on that ball with his broken bat. And I think at this point we can, as I suspected, he doesn't really look like he needs a lot of time to get back into the swing of things. It looks as if he has, you know, a good swing going now. He had a home run in the Arizona, or in the instructional league, in the warm-up games that they had him going to. So I think we're going to get to the point here where, given the fact that the offense hasn't really been able to come through with that crucial, you know, game-busting hit, we might have to consider putting Morse out there in left field to start. I already mentioned that I wanted to see that. I was kind of happy that Ishikawa was the starter in this game because he did so well in Game 1. And he did well in this game also, but I'm wondering how long we can go without an extra home run threat in the lineup, because right now St. Louis is overpowering us with the long ball, and I feel like we need, even if only for psychological reasons, to strike back with a home run, and we might need to rely on Morse to give that to us at some point. So I don't mind the idea of thinking about Morse in left field for the next game, but I'll talk more about that in the next game, pre-game. Let's see, Susak with a great at-bat. I feel like he's been underutilized to this point, and I'm hoping that we see more of him in this series. Excellent work. Still like the idea of Brandon Belt in left field, but it doesn't look like that's going to get much play. Duffy, excellent as a pinch runner. Heads up play to score on the wild pitch. I don't think a lot of our guys on our bench would have scored on that play. So that showed you know, that he was very in the game psychologically, and he does seem like a guy who, you know, plays the game right to me. Arias got a key ground out for an RBI. It's good to see that he was able to get the job done with the runner at third and less than 2 outs. Again, that's been less of a problem. They've managed to at least get the runners home in those situations, and that's an important thing. So good work for Arias. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of him in this series. And Juan Perez, I guess it's time that I give it up to Juan Perez a little bit. For once, he showed he has some amount of hitting talent. He singled up the middle against a tough pitcher, Rosenthal, who isn't exactly pitching very tough in the postseason so far. He's looked very vulnerable. But all the same, Juan Perez had a great sacrifice bunt against a hard-throwing pitcher. I think it was Martinez he had the bunt against. And then to get a single against Rosenthal, well, maybe he's got more value to the team than I realized, but I don't know. It seems like kind of an anomaly thing to me. I still don't want to see Perez up there late in the game. You know, I mean, I could tell you when, as soon as they announced the people that were coming up in the bottom of the ninth, it said Crawford, Perez, and I guess it would be Crawford, Perez, and Blanco. I was like, oh no, you know. Why does this have to happen? So there was no way I thought we were going to be tying up this game in the top of the ninth, and that's why it was kind of so disappointing that we had such a good chance to win it in the top of the ninth and couldn't quite convert, and then lost it so quickly in the bottom of the ninth. So yeah. Anyway, moving on. Let's see here. Let's look at the. I want to see what else I wanted to talk about. All right, let's first look at the pitching here. So PV, not a solid game. He looked very out of sorts. Didn't really have the greatest control in this game, which is something that he's usually very good at. I had gotten the umpire wrong. I had thought that he was going up against Phil Cuzzy and not Bill Welke. So it turned out this game was Bill Welke behind the plate, not Phil Cuzzy. And it turned out, looking at his stats, I ended up looking at his stats versus Bill Welke, and they're actually pretty bad also. He has a career 5.73 ERA versus Welke versus a 6+ ERA versus Cuzzy. So either way, it was going to be bad for this game, and I'm kind of interested to see how this pans out because I'm really testing my umpires affect the game theory here, because I think they are a big part of it, more than most people pay attention to. So yeah, PV, maybe it was the wrong umpire for him. Maybe he wasn't feeling it in this game. I mean, it looked kind of like his postseason performance with the Red Sox against the Cardinals, and the same kind of struggles. And I could pretty much tell early on in the game we were going to this wasn't going to be an easy game to win, because I knew it was going to end up being a long bullpen game. So yeah, there's that. On the other side of it, you had Lance Lynn, who was also pretty mediocre. And I looked at Lance Lynn's stats with Welke as umpire in his career, and he had a 1.667 whip with Welke behind the plate, so at 3.75 ERA. So that shouldn't even have come as a huge surprise that Lynn struggled a little bit. He didn't walk anybody, though. Funnily enough, I thought if Lynn struggled, it would be with control, but only one walk, so uncharacteristically precise in this start for Lynn. And he was able to go a little bit longer than Peavy. He was a little bit more effective, but he definitely looked to be running out of gas by the end. And I think this kind of start against the Giants is about the best you're going to see out of Lance Lynn in general. Let's see. We got Affeldt was exemplary for 2 innings, pitched pretty well, and let's see. And then you had and this is where this game kind of went sour with Bochy's calls, really, unfortunately. And I talked about how I thought that we had a big advantage with Bochy instead of Matheny. I thought that the Bochy versus Matheny matchup, manager-wise, was going to pan out pretty well for the Giants. But I was not expecting Bochy to have his first major flub that I can remember in the postseason. And instead of having just one flub, I think he had 3 flubs in this game. And we'll start with Machi. I didn't think it was bad that he brought Machi in, but to leave him in against the left-handed batter, Tavares, when he was effective getting the first guy, and with Javi Lopez coming in anyway, seemed like a bad call. Machi has not been extremely solid lately. This is going to be something that I'll talk more about in a bit, but let's just say that, Machi against anybody with power that's hitting from the left side does not make me feel too good, and he does tend to, I think, give up a little more home runs against lefties than righties, at least this year. So I don't know, we kind of have to rely on Machi, I think, to some extent, because we only really have 2 left-handed pitchers to go to in the bullpen. I'll talk about that in a second. But so that was bad. Call number 1 was leaving Machi in instead of bringing Lopez in. We had Lopez ready to go. You have 2 left-handed batters coming up in a row. Lopez is, a lefty specialist. Why not let Lopez pitch to both of them? He's been effective so far in the postseason. So that didn't really make a lot of sense. And so that was mistake number 1. Lopez ends up pitching to 1 batter. Then you got Hunter Strickland. Hunter Strickland, so much talent, and yet he is showing his inexperience. You know, why you would throw Matt Adams a pitch in the middle of the plate and up is just ridiculous, you know? And the thing about it is, you know, if you're throwing 98 to 100 miles an hour, fine. And that's what he did against Ian Desmond. You know, he threw that pitch. He was throwing 98 and he threw even 100, I think, when he struck out Desmond on the 100-mile-per-hour fastball. But the pitch that Harper hit, the pitch that Asdrubal Cabrera hit, and the pitch that Matt Adams hit were all 97-mile-per-hour fastball. Now, 97 isn't slow, but it's not 100. And we're not seeing him get up into those upper 90 to that upper 90 territory as much lately. It hasn't really been hitting. It's hit 98 a few times, but I haven't seen much of the 99 at 100 as I was earlier on when he was pitching. So I don't know if he's already starting to get a little tired. He is a youngster, so he shouldn't really have that problem. But, you know, I kind of knew when he was stepping in against Matt Adams that that maybe we were going to have problems. And, you know, at that point, I mean, there wasn't really a lot we could do. Let's see, how did that come about? I should go back and see exactly how we ended up with him. So, yeah, let's see. We got blah, 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 blah. Okay, so Javier Lopez struck out Matt Carpenter. Now, that just goes to show you why we should have had Javier Lopez against Oscar Taveras. If you can strike out Matt Carpenter, then obviously you're feeling it. Although then John Jay did single. But they brought in Strickland, and he picked off John Jay, which was good. But then, so they leave him in, Strickland in, to face, and I understand why they brought Strickland in for Matt Holliday. He's a scary right-handed batter, so it made sense to bring Strickland in. But then he stays with Strickland for the 8th, and that's fine when Holliday comes up. But, you know, with again, and he gets Matt Holliday to line out to Rigor Blanco. But then the Matt Adams ball was just, you know, so obvious. And I don't know, maybe you know, it does seem like basically we can't trust Strickland versus lefties, especially power hitting lefties. Obviously, I mean, you know, Harper 2 home runs. I mean, he's given up. I think they said he'd given up the most home runs in a postseason series or something like that in the NLDS, and in a very short period of time. And now he's already given up 1 home run to Matt Adams. I don't really want to see Hunter Strickland be pitching to Matt Adams or Oscar Taveras. You know, he can pitch to Colton Wong. You know, that guy's got power, but he's not a power hitter like Matt Adams is. So I can see I'll be happy with Hunter Strickland pitching to anybody other than Matt Adams, Oscar Taveras, or you know, I could even be okay with him pitching to Matt Carpenter, to be honest, because again, Matt Carpenter isn't the power threat, but I do not want to see any more Matt Adams, Hunter Strickland. I knew that matchup was going to be a scary one, and it proved it to be quite worse than we thought. That was a crucial run to give up. So yeah, in the end, though, he does get Johnny Peralta and Tony Cruz, both right-handed batters. I think that's the mode we really need to use him in. I guess Bochy thought, well, if we can just get through Matt Adams, there's just another couple of righties. Obviously, we'd already used Affelt, we'd already used Lopez. There was really not much else we could do to bring in a lefty specifically to get Matt Adams. Seemed a little. There was really no lefty to go to. I mean, you know, unless we were going to bring in Bumgarner, who just pitched the night before, so that's probably not going to happen. And I think this is another oversight of the front office. I think the front office takes a little bit of a hit on this one, because we've got a problem with lefties at this point. Before I get to that problem, let's move on and talk about Romo. because that was the other issue we had. Oops. Okay. So yeah, I think, obviously you could say it was a mistake number 2 leaving Strickland in against Adams. I knew it wasn't a good thing. I understand Bochy's logic looking at it now a little better, given that we didn't have a lot other options at the time. And but to me, even bigger mistake than leaving Strickland in, which I think he was just trying to roll the dice, see if he could get through Adams and get the other guys in the inning, which he did, was to bring Romo in the bottom of the 9th after we tied the game. Now, when we tied the game, that was a huge accomplishment, especially considering that we had the bottom of our order up and that we were able to get a hit from Juan Perez of all people to keep that rally going. And it was disappointing when Paulo couldn't drive in any runs with the bases loaded there, but it was an accomplishment just to have tied the game. And when you've tied the game like that, in an emotional way like that, you want to have a shutdown inning. Meaning you want to have a shutdown inning to the bottom of the 9th. As soon as they score, the game's over. So why wouldn't you put in Casilla? Why don't you put in your closer when you want to hold the game? I mean, that's a common practice. You see teams put in the closer when they want to hold a tie. To me, that makes the most sense in general. So, to start the inning with Romo when you've got, let's see, I believe it was, hold on a second, let me take a look. We got, what is Grichuk? Okay, Grichuk is a righty, so I think he thought Wong is a lefty. And then I wonder who would have been the batter. They probably would have had to pinch hit at that point. I think, it was basically you had Manus was in the hitting spot, so they would have had to rely on their bench. And who is their other lefty on the bench? That is a good question. Let's take a look and see who the lefty on St. Louis's bench is. Let's see. We gotta take a look at that. That was a key thing I should have paid attention to here. So, 2014 on the bench. Who do they have who can hit lefty? I'm wondering. Well, let's see. We know they had already used Tavares, so he's gone. Borges is a righty. Descalso is a left, so they could have batted Descalso. That was a good possibility. How about Cosma? Cosma is a righty. Okay. So with that in mind, it looks like that's pretty much their option. Is Pierzynski a righty? I believe he's... Oh no, Pierzynski's a lefty too. Okay. So yeah, they would have pinch hit. They were going to pinch hit for the pitcher, and it would have been a lefty Grichuk and then a lefty pinch hitter most likely. I suppose I understand. Again, this move is still not as egregious as not bringing in Lopez bringing in Lopez at batter early against Tavares. I think Bochy thought that, Wong's got some power, but he's not a big-time home run hitter. So if Romo can just get through Wong, then he gets a righty, and Grichuk, who hasn't really seen him and probably would struggle against him. And then a lefty batter without a lot of power off the bench, who doesn't really scare you that much, like Descalso. So I know why he used Romo, but I don't know. If you ask me, like I said in the last game, Romo in the National Series, Romo gave up a pretty deep fly ball to center field, and I believe it was to a lefty, and that didn't really make me feel super comfortable. So I'm not trying to say I don't think the Romo cap for the first time. Maybe I shouldn't wear the Romo cap anymore, but I'm gonna keep it on because so far they've beaten the odds. So maybe the Romo cap, if he doesn't do well, if Romo comes in and doesn't perform in the next game, I'm gonna have to switch to the beanie. I've got a couple of Giants beanies I can work on. But so yeah, the first failure of the Romo cap was unfortunately a very disappointing one. And Wong, I think I didn't quite give him enough credit in the preview to the NLCS. He does have some good pop especially for a second baseman, and he's someone that we should be somewhat careful with in the future. He does have power and speed, more speed than power probably, but his power is definitely not lacking for a second baseman, and he's young, so he still has time to develop it as well. So yeah, Wong's opened my eyes a little bit. I guess I should have realized he was more of a threat. So yeah, I mean, I think we got problems. The front office did not add another lefty, and so I still think Casilla should have been out there. I think he could have gotten out of that inning and it would have given us a chance to do something. And then after Casilla goes for an inning, you have the option of bringing Petit in and hopefully getting a repeat performance like he did in the NLDS. I think it's going to be tough because against the Cardinals they have a lot of lefty batters, and you're tempted if you have the lead in like the 7th, 6th, 7th, 8th innings to go to your lefties early so that you can make your way to guys like Romo and Casilla. But you never know if Affeldt and Lopez are going to be on. Sometimes they're off, sometimes their control is off, and they get a little wild, and that's always a bad thing. Affeldt tends to really step it up in the playoffs, I think even more so than Lopez does. But they're both tend to be very good in the playoffs, so I'm not really particularly worried about either of them. But the problem is that we only have two lefties, and it's at this point you really start to wonder what the point of having Lincecum is on this postseason roster, because we have, as far as lefties are concerned, we pretty much have Machi, who is pitching in his first postseason ever. He didn't make the postseason roster last year, or in 2012. He hadn't pitched much at all in 2012 at that point. So this is Machi's first postseason. He is a little nervous, and he had a 9 ERA in 9 innings of September, thanks to giving up 3 home runs during September in those 9 innings. So you got to think he's not that trustworthy versus power hitting lefties. So that's one guy. I think we can go back to him at some point, but I think we should probably give Machi a break a little bit. Let him get some confidence back, because he has not really been super solid of late. Machi's more of a guy I'd like to see against righties. I was thinking maybe it'd be a good idea to roll the dice a bit with Lincecum, but he hasn't been particularly better against lefties than righties this year. If we do bring Lincecum in, we better do it at AT&T, because on the road we know he struggles. He does tend to be worse in hot weather, which I think is pretty much over at this point. It's going to be very pleasant in San Francisco for the next 3 games. And it's not as hot on the road as it was earlier in August and September, where he really struggled. He has done well in high leverage situations, so maybe he does rise to the occasion. I've seen that from Lincecum before in the playoffs, and I wouldn't necessarily put it past him to be able to get some key outs if we really needed them and didn't have a lot of other options. But his numbers with Hector Sanchez were much better than they were with Posey or Susac. With Hector Sanchez, he's held batters to a 204 average. But with Posey, he's only held batters to a 352 average, which is, pretty high, and with Susac, he's held batters to a 340 average. So for some reason, he doesn't really have a lot of chemistry with Posey, at least this year. And that is a big reason for concern, and probably why Bochy hasn't really been using him much lately, or at least a part of the reason why. He also, Lincecum wasn't particularly good in the 2012 postseason against the Cardinals. Holiday and Carpenter pretty much owned him in the one start he made against them that year. I'd even forgot that he was still in the starting rotation at that point. I think if we're going to use Lincecum, we need to put him in against Johnny Peralta or John Jay or Oscar Taveras. But those aren't a lot of guys, and you really wish we could have another left-hander in place of Lincecum. Somebody who was, it used to be, we had the, who was that? We had that guy in 2012 who was a lefty that was reasonably effective for some period of time. I can't remember his name right now. But, it would have been nice if we scoured the waiver wire and picked up some semi-effective left-handed pitcher, or a guy who at least, has success against lefties, regardless of whether he's right or left-handed. But now we pretty much have Affeldt and Lopez, and that's what we're working with. So, definitely, this is going to be a recurring problem, I see. We're going to run out. If Lopez doesn't have it, if Affeldt doesn't have it, then we're left with really nobody who can be effective against left-handed pitchers. And, that's going to be tough against this Cardinals lineup, who has Taveras, Wong, Adams, and Carpenter, all very good hitters from the left side. So this is going to be a recurring issue, unfortunately. As far as Petit against lefties, they've hit Petit about as well as righties do. Actually, no, I'm sorry. They hit better against Petit than righties do. 257 versus Petit. But the thing about Petit is, and the reason why I think he works, for some reason, he has a huge split as a reliever versus a starter. And I think it's mostly because he doesn't have quite the stamina to go more than 5 or 6 innings. But as a starter, his ERA is over 5. And as a reliever, he has a 1.84 ERA this year. So that just gives you an idea of how much more effective Petit has been out of the bullpen. So, if we weren't going to put Romo in, or Casilla in, I should say. If we weren't going to put Casilla in instead of Romo, I still would have rather have seen Petit. We could have started Petit in the 9th and hoped that he'd go on from the 9th forward and manage to keep St. Louis scoreless. But you never know, I think in a certain way, it seemed like the Cardinals had this one in their pocket from the beginning. They just had more, the home runs. I mean, 4 home runs. I don't know if there was any way we could have stopped Wong in that at bat. He did a good job. But I don't know. I definitely think we kind of served it up to him. I mean, you want Romo throwing him sliders from the right side? Doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, again, versus the Cardinals lefties, we don't really have a great answer, and other than Romo and Affeldt, and let's just hope that we can find a way to save those guys for the later innings. So that I'd almost rather see Romo, I'd almost rather see more of Affeldt and Lopez in the 8th and 9th innings, 7th and 8th innings, I should say, against the Cardinals lineup than Romo or Strickland. Because we've proven so far for Romo, Machi, and Strickland that I don't think we can rely on them to get these hot Cardinals hitters that are suddenly hitting home runs out of nowhere, where during the season they just didn't quite do it, which is very unusual indeed. Okay. Let's see. Is there anything else? There's one other thing I wanted to say, and that is, for one, Rosenthal does not look like he's going to be the closer anymore. He's been inconsistent this entire playoffs, and he's proven that he can't really be a lockdown closer anymore. I don't know. Maybe Matheny gives him another chance. I hope Matheny gives him another chance, because it doesn't look like he's got what it takes to be a 1-2-3 guy in the 9th. So I'd say look for either Nishek or Manis to be the new Cardinals closer for the rest of the series, and either of those guys owns us. Nishek, I think, pitched especially well against us, and I think he's the guy we should probably watch out for being the closer. He doesn't put you away with any great stuff, but he's very deceptive, and he's the kind of pitcher we don't hit as well. You think about our middle of our lineup: Posey, Sandoval, and Pence, and those are all mostly fastball hitters. I think they tend to hit the fastball the best. And Nishek, I think he relies on breaking pitches more. Belt too. I think Belt's more of a fastball hitter, so I think it makes sense for the Cardinals to use Nishek as their closer, and it would be nice to see us break through on him, but his regular season stats were pretty damn impressive, and seems like he's got us figured out so far, because I haven't seen us do much against Nishek at all in recent memory. And this Manus guy, again, of course, I said I'd love to see him score a run off of him, and then the one chance we have to blow the game open, he comes in and retires Pablo like it's nothing. So this guy, I cannot stand seeing his success against the Giants anymore. This guy is giant kryptonite, Seth Manus, and if we don't break through against him at some point, then I see this trend continuing. He's just going to own us, and it's going to be a real frustrating thing for us Giants fans to put up with. So I would like to see us get through to Seth Manus at some point. So far, though, my wishes have remained unfulfilled on that one. Let's see, what else? Holiday, by the way, didn't have a great game. That's kind of concerning because, I don't know, it could be another Jason Worth style thing where the guy who is one of the best hitters in the lineup doesn't really perform in this game, but I do expect Holiday to be a factor at some point, so we got to keep an eye out for him. He's one of their big RBI guys and very consistent player. I warned everybody about Adams, and he turned out to be good. Peralta, I think we could control him just because he hasn't been the greatest hitter in history, but I don't know. He could definitely pop one off at some point, so he's a little scary. This Richard kid seems like he's got some talent. I'm not that afraid of him yet. Until he hits a home run, I'm not going to be that worried. But Richard does have power, so he's not to be taken lightly either. And then, let's just hope that Yadier Molina is gone. We're going to end up... let's see. Yadier Molina, he has the oblique strain, which is the same injury Morse had, I think. And, it seemed like this is sort of a thing that was already there. He kind of was feeling it in the previous at-bat. You saw him grimacing, and then he needed a little help out after the second at-bat where he couldn't even get to first base. Certainly that looks bad for them. But I wouldn't put it past him to come back. I know he's very tough. He's got all those tattoos, so obviously he knows what it's like to exist in the world of pain. But I would be really worried. I mean, this game would have really scared me if it weren't for Molina's exit. And, I think that was the main saving grace on this one. I don't think he'll ever be able to come back anywhere near 100%, even if he does come back. And because Matheny said it didn't really look so good after he came out, so chances are good that we get a big boost from this. But I want to talk a little bit about Molina going out. They've got two backup options for Molina. One is Tony Cruz. He's not a great hitter. He hits about 225 for his career. Doesn't get on base very much. If he played a full season, he'd hit 10 home runs. He'd never play a full season because he doesn't hit so well. And he doesn't strike out a lot, but he's definitely not really a quality hitter. He's only had 3 postseason at-bats, so he's very green in the postseason especially. Defensively, Tony Cruz is a 990 fielder, pretty good, but he only throws out about the league average, 30% of the runners that run on him. And he gives up more pass balls than Pierzynski does as a catcher. I'll talk about Pierzynski next. So it's not entirely surprising that he couldn't hold on to the ball from Rosenthal, although that ball was definitely very wild. That was a wild pitch, not a pass ball, but it does leave some question about his ability to block behind the plate. I don't know how good of a blocker Cruz is. And the ERAs of the pitchers that Cruz has caught when he catches tend to be over 4. The difference between, this is one of the things, I'll get to that in a second, but the difference in the ERA of the pitchers between Molina and their backups is pretty stark. So that definitely favors us if Molina really is done for the series. As for Pierzynski, he's a career .281 hitter, which is decent. Definitely a threat at the plate. Doesn't have a great on-base percentage, so he's not that patient, which is good. He was only hitting .251 this year, though, which isn't that great in a whole 3/4 of a season, and he only had 5 home runs. The reality is, power-wise, he's probably got about the same amount of power as Molina, although maybe slightly less because he's old. He's 37 years old, so obviously I think his power is probably in decline mode. But at least in his day, he hit on average about the same number of home runs as Molina. So I think he's similar threat to go out as Molina. He's not the hitter Molina was, though, and that helps a lot. Molina not only hits better usually, but also gets on base more than Pierzynski. So we'll probably see Pierzynski as the starter, is my guess. I don't think Tony Cruz is quite up to starting level, and Pierzynski's actually had playoff experience. So yeah, chances are we'll be seeing him instead of Tony Cruz behind the plate. He's been somewhat capable in the postseason, Pierzynski, but it's not like he's been a postseason hero particularly. Pierzynski's a solid fielder, but struggles throwing out runners, stealing. Only throws out 24% of the runners who've attempted to steal on him in his career, and this year it's been even less, something like I think he only threw out 18% combined of the runners that tried to steal on him between Boston and St. Louis. So that is not looking good. And you know what that means? Well, it means that we should definitely think about getting the running game going a little bit. We got some guys who can steal. We got Blanco. We got Pence. Mostly those are the 2 key guys. But maybe we can get Perez to steal a base for us if he manages to get on by pure luck, most likely. Or Duffy, if we do a pinch runner. It's times like these, though, I wish we could have Gary Brown on the roster. And again, I'd almost rather have seen Gary Brown than Tim Lincecum on the roster, given how little opportunity it seems like we're going to have to be able to use Lincecum in the series. But as long as we're not going to have Gary Brown on the roster, I would certainly like to see Lincecum get some time anyway, so that it wasn't a total waste. Another thing we could have done is we could have considered Darren Lewis, our old speedster from the past. It would have been nice to have him as a pinch runner. He is blazingly fast. Probably the fastest guy in our minor league system, really. But for some reason, they didn't think of bringing up Darren Lewis as a pinch runner. Darren Lewis, I think I've got that wrong. It's, what's his name? The fast guy, Darren Ward? Can't remember. He's been on the team the last couple of years. I'm trying to remember his name. Let me see. What the heck is that guy's name? Let's see. Roster stats. Here we go. Alright. Stats. There we go. What roster? That's more like it. Alright. What the heck was that guy's name? Oh, maybe he wasn't in, maybe he left baseball. I'm not even seeing him here anymore. Oh, Darren Ford. That's who I'm thinking of. At least I remembered him. So yeah, I'm not seeing Darren Ford on the minor league roster, so I don't know what exactly happened to him. But it would certainly have been nice to have him on as a pinch runner. We don't really have a legit pinch running threat off the bench at this point, and I find that to be extremely disappointing. Duffy had some speed in the minors, but he's not exactly a stolen base master or anything. Perez had some speed in the minors, but he's never been very effective at stealing bases either. So Gary Brown was probably the best thing we had as far as being a threat on the base paths, and I'm sure it wouldn't have come into play if it wasn't for Molina's injury. But now that Molina's out, we don't really have a lot to go to on the bench for steals. But I'd like to see them send Duffy a few times because I know he's had some speed in the minors, and so given that both of their catchers, especially Pierzynski, hasn't had a lot of success throwing out runners, I think to send Duffy a time or two or Perez a time or two could be a wise gamble from this point forward, as long as Molina's not there. Okay, so yeah, basically we're talking about their ERAs of the Cardinals pitchers tend to be about almost even a run higher with pitchers other than Molina, and that could be hugely helpful. If Molina does manage to return though and play through pain, it could be bad because the Cardinals will get a emotional boost from his return, and that would be a little scary also. So we really got to hope that if he's hurt and doesn't play, that he doesn't play for the rest of the series. Because if he makes a heroic comeback in Game 7, that could be all it takes to, to give them the emotional push to help them finish off the Giants at the end. So let's really hope that doesn't end up being a storyline, because that would be really annoying. Let's see. I don't expect him to come back, though, because Morse was out for a while with the same problem, and he looked like he was in some serious pain when he left the field. And for you Cardinals fans who say, it's not fair, we would have won with Molina, well, like I said, I was afraid of, I would have been very afraid if he hadn't gotten injured in this game, that this would have been the game the Cardinals needed to start pushing them into victories. But I want to remind Cardinals fans that the Giants are missing Pagan, who, if you need to be reminded, and I haven't really gone over this, so I want to take a moment to go over this. Without Pagan, the team this year was 29-36, a 446 winning percentage. They're not even a 500 team without Pagan. With Pagan, they were a 615 winning percentage. So clearly, these are things that are scary. These two numbers are not something that make you feel super comfortable. And let's see. Even with in the postseason, somehow we've managed to go 5-2 without Pagan. And that's pretty amazing, and a lot of that was based on our pitching and on a lot of luck. We have had a lot of luck on offense so far. We've put ourselves in a position to succeed, but as I've said before, the hits with runners in scoring position has not really been happening. And as a reminder, that today's game, well, we were 3 for 9 in today's game, so we saw a little improvement there. If we could get something like 3 for 9 from this point forward, I'll take it. Believe me, 3 for 9 is no slouch. This is probably the first game where we finally converted with runners in scoring position to some extent. But that's going to have to continue, because in the postseason, we've gone 5-2 without Pagan. But like I say, a lot of those wins were either pitching or luck, or a combination of both. And if you include that 5-2 record, along with the 3-3 record they had since he went out for the last time at the end of the season, our winning percentage for the whole year, all games played without Pagan this year, is .472. Still not .500. And meanwhile, the Cardinals, while they've been a lot worse without Molina, they still have a 500 plus winning percentage. They're not very much over. I think they're like 4 games over 500. without Molina. So, that's a little scary. Without Pagan, we're 472, and they're a little over 500, which means that if you're based on the season stats alone, they still have a pretty good chance of beating us, even without Molina. So with Molina, it would have been extremely difficult. Without Molina, certainly our chances get a lot better. But we're going to need more hitting like we saw today out of the Giants if we're gonna have a chance. Really, the rest of the series is going to be a battle of two stats. We've got our terrible offense, our usually mediocre offense without Pagan, versus the crappier Cardinals pitching without Molina. Before I get that far, I did want to say, so yeah, no whining from the Cardinals fans because without Pagan, our team is as I've said, has had a miserable record in general, at least comparatively. And not only that, but we lost Matt Cain. The Cardinals lost Jaime Garcia. So I think that's it's a much bigger loss if we lose Matt Cain than Jaime Garcia. I'd say there's no doubt. We lost Scudero, although Panic has basically become the new Scudero. And we never got a chance to see Derek Law, although the Cardinals did lose Kevin Segrist. So that was kind of a big loss for the Cardinals, but I guess we can call it even with Matt Cain versus Jaime Garcia and Kevin Segrist versus Derek Law as a combination of those two. So in the end, I think it really just comes down to we don't have Pagan, they don't have Molina. That, as far as I'm concerned, that makes us just about even. And whoever wins, I think, is the best team at this point. I think really Molina going out is really kind of a great equalizer. Because I believe if we'd had Pagan, that we would have been extremely hard to beat in this series. That's why losing him before the end of the year was such a crushing blow. But you can't cry over injured players at this point. You got to move forward. So yeah, the stats going to be which wins out: the crappy Cardinals pitching versus or the which stat is stronger: crappier Giants hitting without Pagan or crappier Cardinals pitching without Molina. That's going to be the battle we see from here on forward. We have been lucky with the offense so far, but Blanco's leadoff hitting cancer. There's a certain cancer that comes. It's not that Blanco isn't a good hitter. He had a good game today. I believe that Blanco can be successful, but it's just strange how. I don't know if Blanco's not the same threat on the bases as Pagan. I don't know what happens, but somehow the whole team seems to slump when Blanco is hitting leadoff, and it's very strange. You'd think there would be no connection between the middle of the order hitters and Blanco in the leadoff role, but somehow, Posey, Pence, and Pablo don't seem to hit as well when Blanco is leading off. I really don't understand why. We always say, well, if Blanco isn't hitting, we need the middle of the order to hit. But it seems as if when Blanco hits, the middle of the order doesn't hit as much, and when the middle of the order hit, Blanco doesn't hit as much. When are we going to see those two things together? I think, if we do see those two things happen together, we could have a game where we score 8 runs again. That can happen. But, we haven't had that sync of Blanco's performance and the middle of the order's performance, and it's definitely troubling. Something to be worried about. Even if we do manage to get past the Cardinals with Molina being injured, this whole weak offense thing has got to stop when we get to the World Series, because we're looking at a Royals team that is going to be very tough to beat. Most likely, at this point, the Royals are sort of dominating that series. So yeah, let's get the offense on track. I think we've got a good chance to do it. We're coming into a game. It's going to be a day game, 1 o'clock game. This is the kind of game where I've seen the team succeed with Blanco at leadoff. So I'll do a short video on that next. Probably won't do that till tomorrow, maybe late, since it's a little early for preview since we have a day off. But again, this game very exciting. There's a long analysis on this one. Sorry it took so long, but there was a lot of stuff to talk about. Looking forward to Game 3. You know, there's a bunch of stats going for Game 3. It doesn't make me super confident, and I'll let you know about that in the next video. But I think we can win it, and I'm not sure that we have to, but certainly it's a game we'd love to have. So stay tuned. In the next video, we will do the preview. But for this video, for this game, I'm glad it's over. Sad it had to end the way it did. Very exciting game. And you know, let's hope we can break the schneid here. Go Giants.